You can change the world. Learn from proven change makers from all walks of life. They'll show you how to raise money, invest for impact, and so much more. You can start small. Start today and never quit. You can change the world by strengthening your superpowers. Now, welcome to the Superpowers for Good show. I'm your host, Devin Thorpe. Welcome. We are so thrilled to have you here today. I am just excited. We've got Dom Kelly with us. Dom is the founder, CEO, and president of the New Disabled South. It's a nonprofit with an affiliated activist side of things, a 501c4 to go with the 501c3, doing amazing work. So help me welcome Dom Kelly. Dom, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Devin. This is super exciting. I've been looking forward to this.
Oh, well, no, the privilege and pleasure is all ours. Why don't we start by asking you to just give us a little bit of an overview of work that you do at New Disabled South?
Absolutely. So, New Disabled South, we are the first and only regional disability organization in the country. What that means is that there are great organizations doing great work focused on people with disabilities all around the country, but nobody who is taking that view of this work from a regional perspective. And so a few years ago in my organizing work, in my political work, I realized that so many of the issues that my community as disabled people face here in Georgia, folks were facing in the South, in other parts of the South, in Mississippi and North Carolina, Alabama, and that no one was really bringing folks together to kind of problem solve. So that's what New Disabled South started as. It was a way for me to do some coalition building, me to bring people to the table. And what it's turned into now is a full-fledged organization that does do coalition building, but we also do policy advocacy work. We do grassroots community organizing throughout 14 states in the South. We have a research operation that really tries to have the data to back up our fights for policy change. We have a really strong comms team that is really focused on narrative change around disability in the South. And then with our 501c4 arm, we get to do a little bit more political, a little bit more progressive work. But between those two, New Disabled South as the C3 and New Disabled South Rising as the C4, our goal is really to create change for disabled people in the South.
What do you see as being the kind of the difference, the challenges that are, I won't say unique, because I'm sure you would agree that there's probably nothing happening in the South that never happens anywhere else. But what do you see as the differences in the South where maybe there are greater problems for disabled people than in other parts of the country? Or is there?
There are, and it has a lot to do with the legacy of this region, both good and bad. We talk about voting, for example. A lot of the work we do is around expanding access to our democracy to disabled people. We see things like long lines, hours and hours long lines here in Georgia and other states. That doesn't happen in a lot of other places. We still live in a region where the legacy of Jim Crow, these Jim Crow policies that made it impossible for Black folks to vote, are still present. We still see voter suppression actively enacted here in the South, and that impacts disabled people, particularly if you're Black and disabled or multiply marginalized. That's one example. We have 7 out of the 10 states in this country in the South that have not expanded Medicaid, fully expanded Medicaid. So we've got people in our community who are in that coverage gap, who can't get access to affordable, accessible healthcare. That's not just a Southern issue, but it's disproportionately here in the South. Disproportionately here in the South, we've got people who are waiting for sometimes 10, 15, 20 years for waivers that would allow them to get care in their homes instead of having to be forced to live in institutions. That's also not just a Southern problem, but we've got 75% of people who are waiting for those waivers here in the South. So there are issues like that that we know are not unique to the South, but that we see disproportionately, and as a result, they impact disabled people even more so here than they do in other places, especially when you take into consideration the fact that we've got the highest poverty rates here in the South. We've got inaccessible transportation, we've got housing crisis that we don't see in other parts of our country. A lot of that has to do with an unwillingness for the folks that we elect to actually spend the money that we the taxpayers pay. And so that's part of the work that we're doing, is trying to get those decision makers, those people who we elect into power, to actually prioritize our community.
Years ago, I had a woman on my show who was disabled, a powerhouse woman. She was really a genuine influence. She had a very big, important job in media and as a producer, and so she was a big deal. At the same time, she pointed out that I think she had muscular dystrophy, some form of that, and she pointed out that the organization employed no people with disabilities, certainly none with muscular dystrophy, and it really bugged her, right? I think you have a policy at your organization that everyone on the team, the board members, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think everybody is working with a disability. And so you're really kind of walking the talk about employing and incorporating people. How have you done that? How does that work? How do you guide other people to follow that example?
Sure. Well, I'll say we don't necessarily have a policy in terms of hiring, because we can't discriminate on who we hire. That said, we have been really lucky to have the opportunity to hire disabled people. So right now, our entire staff is disabled. Our entire governing board, which I put together, is are all disabled people, and that's critical. Like, our community doesn't get the opportunity to join boards that other people get. We often don't have the opportunity to have jobs that are not just working in disability rights or disability justice, but in general, jobs that have, the kinds of environments that are accommodating to us and our needs. Sometimes people don't feel safe disclosing in a typical job for that reason. And so I think how we've done it is we've created a culture that feels safe for people with disabilities to come and apply for a job. Not just because they may be passionate about the work we're doing by their own lived experience, but because we offer benefits, we offer a workplace environment, a work structure that is rooted in disability justice principles, that is rooted in self-care and healing and restorative justice, that is rooted in what we would call an anti-capitalist politic, that our bodies are not just for producing, that we really value our wholeness, and those are values that we've built our benefits, our policies around. And I think for that reason, a lot of people in our community have felt that this would be a workplace that they would feel safe to be in and be out and disabled, and that they would be supported. And really, that just came from I had this vision of this org I wanted to build. I wrote down a list of all the things that I had ever wanted to have in a workplace as a person with cerebral palsy myself. And I wrote those all down. And when I got to know who's the person who's now my co-founder and chief operating officer, when I hired her, I said, "This is what I want to do. Is this possible?" She said, "Dom, we can do whatever we want." So we operationalized those ideas. And so I think that that's how we've been able to build a strong team of people with that lived experience.
Tell me a little bit, be a little bit specific. What are some of those things that you built into the structure that would be more welcoming to people who have disabilities?
Sure. So a really critical one for me was this idea of a 4-day, 32-hour work week, which for some reason here in the United States is not something we see very often. We're seeing more and more now, but I really wanted to be able to have full-time folks who did not work 40 hours. Like a weekend should be longer than 2 days. It's something I've always wanted. And I've had jobs where we've had summer Fridays, but it didn't always, it kind of felt like a little dangling carrot. And it never felt like it was something that, was valued. And so a 4-day, 32-hour, strict 32-hour work week is critical. We offer fully paid, unlimited time off. And that's not just a way to get people, sometimes companies use that as a way to like make sure people don't take time off. And we have minimum time off that we ensure that our staff use. That includes any sick time. We don't accrue sick time. We don't accrue PTO. We have it unlimited for a reason. If people need to take care of themselves, they take care of themselves. We have a very progressive parental leave policy, a year of parental leave that's 6 months fully paid full time off and 6 months part time hours fully paid. And we have fully paid health insurance, life, vision, dental, all of those types of things. Those are all just a few examples of like the actual tangible benefits that we put in place to offer people that would make sure that they felt like if they were having a flare up or if they were having a day where they needed some time, some downtime, like we weren't going to say no, you need to get your work done or you don't have any time accrued. That's often what makes the workplace inaccessible for our community. And also we're a remote organization and we really support our employees in making sure they have a comfortable place to work.
That is, I really appreciate you getting a little bit granular, a little bit specific, because those things are, on the one hand, easy and scary to big employers with lots of people. And yet you can see how if more companies did this in the world, it would be transformative for society to have some of that pressure come off of being viewed as just a mechanism of production rather than as a full human being. Really profound stuff. Well, listen, we're going to take a quick break here, and then we'll come back and continue this discussion. So, everybody, let me just reiterate: we're here with Dom Kelly, the CEO and founder of the New Disabled South, a nonprofit organization focused on helping people with disabilities, both through advocacy and direct support. So stick around. You don't want to miss this. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion about his superpowers. Want to learn from the world's great change makers? Find your superpower. Subscribe to the Superpowers for Good newsletter at superpowersforgood.com. Make your strengths into superpowers that will change the world. Join the super crowd today. Superpowers4good.com. Join us for Supercrowd 24 for 2 full days of wealth and impact-creating content at this virtual conference on April 17th and 18th. We'll have 100 speakers and live pitch sessions. Learn how to invest like a pro and raise money from the crowd. Save 50% with the discount code SUPERCROWD at thesupercrowd.com. Join us at Supercrowd Baltimore to connect with community-focused business leaders and investors working to support diverse founders, social entrepreneurs, and community builders. Learn how to raise money from the crowd and how to invest like a pro. March 21st at the B&O Rail Museum. Register today at thesupercrowd.com. Welcome back, everyone. We're so excited. We've got with us today Dom Kelly. Dom is the CEO and founder of the New Disabled South, and just great to be talking with him today. But Dom, we're going to shift gears now. We want to talk to you a little bit about your superpower. You have accomplished pretty amazing things, and I wish we'd had time to get into more of it. But you worked closely on some really important political campaigns there in Georgia. You're a big deal. You've accomplished some important stuff. You've made a big difference in the world. What do you see as your superpower?
Well, first of all, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. I thought a lot about this, and I really think my superpower is empathy. Um, I I think the leaders that I have learned from have all exhibited empathy, and for me, um, you know, that comes from my own life experiences. I'm a triplet, and my fraternal triplet brother died when we were 6 years old, and that experience, completely changed my life. But the three of us shared this identity of being disabled, of having cerebral palsy, and that was bonding. And when he died, it really affirmed my commitment to this work. And in being in political spaces, in nonprofit spaces, even in for-profit companies, and I have seen a lack of empathy really take down leaders and take down organizations, and it is something that I just go back to often and remind myself um, to really use my empathy as a strength, and that I can understand and value people's humanity and what they've gone through. I've had staff this past year, go through some of the worst things you can go through in your life, and I've been at workplaces in the past where that you would have been only allowed to take 5 days bereavement leave, or you would have, whatever it was, you would not have felt supported. And I think I would say my that's why my superpower is empathy. I'm able to empathize with these real human experiences that we go through, and show up for people. And that was, something my wife said to me when we met, was that she really appreciated, um, that that my empathy was a strength. And so I bring that into my leadership, and I try to I try to bring that into my everyday life, whether it's with people with disabilities or just a random person I meet. I really try to remember that we're all human and we're all going through it, and try to really understand, and empathize with people and their feelings and experiences.
It is, profound what you're talking about, and I'm sorry to hear that you lost your brother. And I can imagine, but only imagine how difficult that would be, especially for a 6 year old. But it's interesting to note how it has impacted your life, and I appreciate you sharing that. I wonder if you can think of an example, a specific example, when you used empathy to face a challenge in your life or your career, and sort of came out with a good ending that you can talk about. Can you think of an example to illustrate this conversation?
Yeah. I think actually a great example is, I was in a job that I really, was feeling frustrated with, um, and it wasn't a good fit. And the boss that I had, actually just didn't have a whole lot of empathy, and said some things to me. My wife and I were doing some work at the border at the time to help refugees, just doing some organizing. And at the time he said something like, I wish you cared as much about my business as you do about refugees at the border. And it was frustrating because I felt I was working really hard, and at the same time it really highlighted some misalignment for me. And so I share that because I was feeling frustrated. I was feeling afraid I was going to lose my job, or I was going to quit my job, or I was just going through it. And instead of not doing what I was doing, I got to double down. And at the time, we had a couple of friends who came to us to live with us as refugees from Honduras. And when I got home that day, one of them had found out he got a really bad diagnosis, and and shared it with us. And I got to put my stuff aside and be there for him and his partner, um, and be supportive and listen. And it affirmed my commitment uh, to that work. And what wound up happening was I lost that job, and it wound up being the best thing that ever happened to me, because I wouldn't be down this path that I'm on now. But my ability to kind of put that aside and really be there for someone who needed it really put it into focus and put things into perspective, and really made me realign with my values and what was important to me. And I think I showed up in that moment for someone who needed me. So yeah, that's what comes to mind.
That's a great example, a great, powerful illustration of how that can be an important part. If you were coaching a colleague, for instance, to develop empathy, someone perhaps who had failed to manifest empathy in a situation, you think, my friend, my colleague, let's be more empathetic. How would you coach them to actually develop that skill? It can be tricky. It is a skill. I'm convinced. How would you coach someone?
I think first and foremost, I would coach this person to I in a program I'm a part of, we would say, take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth. I would really encourage that person to listen. I think that's critical to practicing empathy, is just sitting and listening to another person, not having to speak, not having to interject unless it's needed or asked for. But I think really listening to somebody, that you don't necessarily have to put yourself in their shoes or try to, you know, share your own experience or relate. You just have to listen. And I think that would be the first thing I would tell them is maybe that next conversation you have with this person, if they're your direct report or whatever it is, like just listen, just really give them the chance to talk. And I think over time, the more you listen to somebody, uh, the more those kind of power dynamics fade away. The blocks that kind of prevent us often in the workplace from being empathetic and practicing empathy, I think can kind of go away when you really start to listen to somebody else's experience. So it just starts with that for me.
That's great advice. Great advice, and I really appreciate you taking a minute. As we wrap up, I wonder if you would just take a minute and tell people how they can learn more about the New Disabled South, how they can connect with you. I know people, after hearing you, will want to connect with you on social media or maybe more directly. Give them some coaching on the best ways to reach out, and how to learn more about New Disabled South and to support your work. I suspect there's a way for someone to donate if they really wanted to. So don't leave that out.
Absolutely. I'm a fundraiser, so I will never leave that out. First of all, you can go to newdisabledsouth.org. That is our website for our 501c3. Newdisabledsouthrising.org is for our C4. You can also go to newdisabledsouth.org/donate. That is the best and easiest way to donate to our organization. And then with me personally, I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me if you search for Dom Kelly. You should be. I think it should be pretty easy to find me. There aren't many others. And I'm also on social media. My social media handle on Twitter and Instagram is at THE_tattooed Jew, one word. And I also have a personal website as well, thetattooedjew.com. And you can reach out directly as well there.
Fantastic. Well, Dom, we want to thank you for taking the time to be a guest on the show. We're so grateful that you make time for us. We want to wish you every success in the important work that you're doing, on both sides, from supporting individuals that are facing challenges of disabilities, and that gets nearer and dear to my heart every day, because I of the people in my life around me and some of my own experiences. And so I want to see you succeed there. And of course, the work you do as an activist and as an organization, with the New Disabled South Rising, really important. So we want to see it succeed. And we want to thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great.
All righty. Now, let's do some good.